On March 2nd, our town was hit by a tornado. I remember coming in that afternoon and coming over the hill just after it had struck. And I remember looking up to the sky, and I remember asking myself, why? Why would these things happen the way that they did? You know, why are all these people hurt? And then the second thought that came into my mind was, why am I still sitting here? Why am I not out there? What am I doing sitting in this vehicle to help people? After I had made sure that Kelsey and the kids that she was watching were okay and safe, I remember rushing into town, and I remember just seeing chaos. There was just chaos and havoc everywhere, and I just didn't know where to start. That first night, I spent the evening getting food and supplies from the Family Dollar down to the Catholic church in the middle of town. The next day, I remember going out, and I was driving around looking to see, who I could help. And I came across this woman, Miss Douglas, on Brownstown Road, and she was standing outside of her home, and I just remember her looking around with her friend. And so I stopped and I kind of started talking to her, and she told me her story, and in her house she has a bathroom, and she had gotten to the bathroom with her and her 2 dogs, and she was telling me how she sat in her bathroom and she started to pray, and she just held her hands close and tight and just was praying to God that He would keep her safe. And her entire house was taken by the tornado. The roof caved in on top of her, except the only thing that saved her was the back wall of the shower fell over her and acted like a shield from the brick and the debris that was falling on her. She ended up walking out of there with nothing more than bruises on her legs and both dogs still alive. She went on to tell me that the only thing that she wanted out of the house was her quilt. She told me that her quilt was on the washing machine. As I went in there and rummaged through the havoc and the debris, I found the washing machine underneath a big pile of brick, and on top of the washing machine was still her quilt folded. The defining moment for me in that situation, when you really look up and you just say, yeah, there's a God, is looking at her face and just seeing the joy and the happiness, even though she stands amongst just rubble and destruction. It'll probably stick with me for the rest of my life. And the next day, I remember getting a buddy of mine together, and we were gonna go out there, we were gonna continue to clean up. I remember sitting there, and I was waiting on him to get there, and it was the day that it had snowed. As I was working through the rubble and trying to get all these things out and trying to find any valuables that I could, her purse, her cell phone, things like that, I remember looking up and I remember saying, I can't do this by myself. This is too much for me to do by myself. This will take weeks, months, there's no way I can do this. And that was just a constant thought in my head. And then probably 20 minutes later, a van pulled up from West Virginia, and they were full of missionaries. And they came up to me and we started to talk. They said, what do you need help with? And I said, anything that you can help me with. And about 15 minutes later, they came back with 3 different vans full of chainsaws, wheelbarrows, probably 20 people. And it was just a flock. And that was the moment when I looked up and I was just like, how can He take someone 13 hours away and place them where I am, right there, where I needed them the most? Another thing that brought me closer to God during the tornado was the strength aspect. After the first week, I was drained. I was going to work in the evenings and then getting up and working all day, and I was just exhausted. I really didn't know how much longer I could do it without sleep and without really good food or anything like that, but I just felt like I just kept having to push on. But I was reaching that breaking point. And I remember sitting in the basement of the Hughes residence, and Kelsey and I were downstairs, and I asked Kelsey, I said, will you pray for me for strength? And we grabbed hands and we sat down there and we just prayed. We just prayed for me to be lifted up and to have strength. And I remember that next morning when I got up, I was just so alive with strength and just ready to go about the day. And as I went out, through the next couple weeks, there were these hit and miss, jobs and things, and it was just constant work, then it was the little moments that brought me strength throughout the whole time that I was working. It was the smile or the thank you or the, why are you doing this? Or, what can I do to help you? Or it was just the seeing the joy that, I could bring people by helping them, and just seeing and hearing all the miracles that had happened around the area throughout the tornado. And that's what built me up, and that's what brought me the strength throughout the whole deal. I'm not going to say that, I was, a huge help and throughout the tornado, much like there were many other crews and many other people that did a lot more than I did. But I can tell you that throughout the tornado, that's the defining moment that brought me to Christ, that really opened my eyes and was the reason that where I am today is where I am. I'm definitely very, very blessed to be where I am.